in late 2025, I was invited by the Shift Happens podcast team. My first interview, and I was terribly nervous, I must admit. And I probably wasn't the best interviewee. I think I waffled a hell of a lot. But since then, I mean, what that did do, it gave me the boost to start that YouTube channel. So I've set that up now. That's called Crossing the Quantum Bridge, and hopefully you're watching this video on that very same channel. But I've taken that interview while I'm learning new skills, how to edit, how to animate my own artwork. And I've taken that first interview, I've edited it, I've cut it down, I've added some film, and I'd really, really like to get your thoughts. If you wouldn't mind taking the time to watch the following video, as I say, it's about 30 minutes. Leave a comment below. If you like it, give me a thumbs up. And dare I ask, please subscribe if you think it's something that you might be interested in. Let's hope at some point there'll be further videos to come. Thank you very much for watching. Cheers.
And welcome to this week's episode of Shift Happens. We have a very special guest this week who I'm really excited to talk to. His name's Jules. He's an artist and he's also a remote viewer. So hi Jules and welcome.
Welcome. Thank you very much for having me.
So tell us, what is remote viewing?
It was initially started in the 70s, and it was the American military set up a remote viewing protocol because they realized that the Russians during the Cold War were employing psychics to gain various forms of information as an intelligence gathering. And what the Americans effectively did was there were two scientists, two laser physicists who were working at Stanford Research Institute in America. And one particular guy, Hal Puthoff, had realized that the Russians were training psychics to actually look into basically what the Americans were doing there. So it was an alternative form of intelligence gathering. And in a panic, basically, the Americans thought, well, we need to be on top of this as well. So they brought in natural psychics. One guy in particular is a guy called Ingo Swann, who was an artist from New York. And he was a very gifted natural psychic. And through his own abilities there, Ingo Swann with the guys at SRI, which Stanford Research Institute, they engineered how Ingo actually was able to see things and to sort of descend his consciousness out there. And they developed this remote viewing program. And it's basically something that anyone can do, anyone can learn. Like musical instruments, you will have virtuosos and you'll have people that will fumble and play. And remote viewing is very much the same. So yeah, it's something that can be taught. So initially it was an American, the most famous group was called the Stargate Project, and it was an American military protocol. But nowadays there are people all over the world doing remote viewing, and yeah, I've been one of them. Which
is so exciting. So did you train how to remote view, or are you one of these people that it just happened to?
I was I'd always consider myself about as psychic as a brick.
Yeah.
Up until the late 90s, I'd had a very strange history. I suppose I'm an ordinary person that's had some extraordinary things happen.
Yeah.
And so from very young as a child there, I had what I first of all considered to be ghostly type occurrences. Later, it looked like it might have had something to do with UFOs and such like.
Oh, you're allowed to say that on here, especially to me.
having no frame of reference to describe what I was seeing as a kid, I figured these things were ghosts. One of my earliest memories is being in a cot and a sphere, a giant orb, possibly about the size of a...
Oh, I've gone... Goosey, have you? Yeah.
If my hair stands on, I'd take someone's eye.
In the cot? That young?
In the cot, and there was this ball of light just hovering in my bedroom, and I couldn't tell you how long it was there for, how it got in, and it took off at some point, and that stayed with me.
Yeah.
And I've in latter years, I started getting a lot of strange experiences happening. I started getting these strange dreams. I started drawing a hell of a lot, and I was painting. Both of my parents were artists, and I was just hammering out all of these drawings. A lot of them are strange characters in the night and odd things. This sort of led me down looking into the whole UFO thing. We'd seen UFOs as children. I'm sort of skipping a little bit backwards and forwards.
No, that's fine.
And through sort of following up on this and studying this and trying to actually find answers to what it was that was occasionally popping up in my life there, I came across in about 1997, I came across a book called Cosmic Voyage, and this was written by a social scientist called Courtney Brown, and he'd spent time actually working with the Stargate remote viewers there. He'd been trained. So he'd put this book together, and this is the first time I'd ever heard of remote viewing, and I'm thinking, what the hell is this? This is amazing.
Yeah.
And one of the things they were talking about, these remote viewers, these military guys, were very interested in looking at UFOs, extraterrestrial intelligences, and I'm thinking, this is right up my street.
Yeah.
So, short story long, as that's been, how did I start with the remote viewing? I first of all found online, and it was about 1997, a website by a guy called Gerald O'Donnell, who had a series of cassette tapes, and he offered this remote viewing and remote influencing course. And I thought, I'm going to do it. It's about $500. I was living in Australia at the time, and I got these cassettes. And very nervously, I put on the headphones, and I didn't really know what to expect. And it said, lie down, make yourself comfortable. And so I did this. Lay back, headphones on. And there were some binaural beats going on. So it's to bring your brainwaves down sort of through alpha, through into a theta or theta brainwave state. And my intention was to predict the crop circles that were going to appear in the UK, so on the other side of the world from Adelaide, where I was at the time.
Oh wow!
And that was what I wanted to do. I
thought,
can I predict that? I'll give that a crack. Yeah. So I get into this state, and I'm starting to go down, and I'm down and down, and the next thing I know, my heart starts pounding. I've got rapid eye movement. I honestly thought I was having some kind of heart attack or a fit.
Really?
This has only ever happened once. It was the first time. And then it was just streams of images, just one after the other, just hitting me. And this guy in the headphones is saying, don't stick on anything, just register it, let it go. I'm thinking, bloody hell.
Wow.
It was really
that is so cool. I love it. So when you're saying streams, what were they? Images?
It was images, images.
Code or?
It was all images, coming up. And I was trying to make note of what these images were, but it was so fast, fast. And I came out of this session. It was about a 45-minute session or so, and I was quite shaken up.
Yeah.
And I'd taken I got a pen and a pad, and I tried to sketch as much as I possibly could that I could remember. But it was such a fast down, and that was my first thing into remote viewing. It never happened like that again, but that was the opening situation. And drew these pictures. Back then, the internet was incredibly slow. It was really, really slow. You'd wait about 40 minutes for a picture to download. All of the buzzing for the phone line. And I discovered in England there was a website called the Crop Circle Connector.
Yeah.
And they had these guys who were flying around the crop circle fields in the UK, and bloody hell, I actually noticed that some of the pictures I was getting, or very close facsimiles, were appearing in the fields in the coming weeks.
Really?
And I was just absolutely stunned, and I couldn't believe it.
Was that because you'd set your intention before you lay down? You set your intention, and that was what?
That was it, yeah. So that was like a big push. And I started, exploring different things. I started playing with it there. I didn't really understand all of the protocols. That didn't come until sort of much later. So I went in sort of with very much a novice entry into remote viewing, which sometimes isn't the wisest thing. I did some things which weren't particularly good.
Sink or swim.
Well, a little bit like that. But
sometimes it's
yeah. Well, I mean, this does get sort of interesting. I was so excited by what was happening. I was ringing my mum in the UK saying, "Mum, I've just got into this remote viewing stuff, and it's bloody incredible." And the first test I just did with her, and I said previously I was psychic as a brick, and I don't generally consider myself psychic at all, but I'm occasionally able to go in and see things, and it's quite amazing. So this instance, I'm speaking to Mum. I'm in Adelaide, she's in Cornwall, and I said, pick something in the house. This is a house I'd never visited, and she said, okay, I've got something. And so I tried to put myself into a theta state, and in doing so, I just had this picture, these random cones, conical shapes, like dunces hats or cornetto ice creams.
Yeah,
lots of them.
Yeah,
all of these things, these cone shapes. And I said, I cannot imagine what it is that you're actually looking at in the house. And you're my mum. I know the kind of decor you're going to have. I can't imagine what you've got. And she said, well, what I'm actually looking at is a woven basket full of pine cones. And so that the symbology there was, she's looking at cones. She's looking at cones. And
it's mad, isn't it?
It's mad. It is completely mad.
I just love it. I kind of had the impression that when you remote view, you don't just see it, you kind of go there. Is that wrong, or is that how you advance?
There's all that there are.
It presents in different ways.
It does, people. And there are different modalities or methods of doing remote viewing. And to answer the question, are you actually there? This is called bilocation. So to be aware that you're actually in where you are at the current time. But you can also be somewhere else, and to actually view a target. And in all the years I've done it, so we're talking since 1997 when I first started, I've bilocated twice. Once was, or actually both times was by accident. And the first occasion, once again, I was going in with the intent of predicting or seeing crop circles that would happen in a probable future. And instead of seeing anything like that, I suddenly found myself floating above this. I only describe it as it looked, to look at it like a sculpture or a statue, and it was this sort of whitish shape like this with this black sort of face type thing. No actual face, just this black disc at the front. And this was emanating the most incredible energy from it there. It was like being at a rock concert without sound, standing in front of the Marshall amps.
Oh,
really? I felt like I was being blasted by energy. And I got the this is almost like being in the presence of a god. If this thing was just blasting, it didn't care that I was there. It didn't register me. It was neither sort of benevolent. It was just indifferent to me, and I was just floating around this thing, and I got this sensation that it was just a complete massive intelligence, and it was just radiating this intelligence. So that was
wow. And you didn't know where you were.
I had no idea. I was floating in this sort of like a hazy, mauvey coloured place, and my Facebook profile is actually this symbol.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
have you? Yeah.
That's this symbol. I've been trying to work out for years what it was, and hopefully find someone who's seen it as well, so I can somehow come up and get some kind of answer. The closest I've actually seen is the goddess imagery, which you quite often see, which is something quite similar in its shape, and there's this sort of disc there. The second bilocation experience I'd had, and it was a bit silly, it's a bit of fun. Friends of mine and I would set each other remote viewing targets, and we'd draw a picture or stick some cutouts from a magazine into an envelope, and we'd number the envelope and say, right, your target is envelope number 14, and so on. So we'd do this. And one particular day I thought, well, I'll see where these friends are, and I thought I'm going to actually try and mentally see what's happening down in the local village pub. As you do.
Yep, as you do.
I quite like pubs. I'm a big fan of pubs. So this was my intention. But what threw me this time was instead of me sort of being aware that I was just lying on the bed with a set of headphones on, I suddenly found myself in the car park of the pub, and I'm looking and I'm thinking, bloody hell. And I could feel the wind, and I thought, this is really strange. I thought, okay, let's go into the pub. And I thought, no, I'm not going to go through the door. I'm going to go through the wall.
I love it.
It's
like Harry Potter in the Invisible Stone.
Well, the pub itself there, a shout out to my local pub, pub down in Cornwall, the Queen's Arms in Batalic. It's a really old building, several hundred years old. It's got really thick granite walls. Yeah. And I thought, I'm just going to push myself through the other side and see what happens. So I walked at the wall, and as I got to it, I felt this resistance. But it was the strangest sensation I think I'd ever felt whilst remote viewing. And the only way I can try and explain it, as I passed through the granite, it was almost like liquid passing through chalk. And if you can imagine that very condensed, thick powder and liquid trying to somehow squeeze through. Yeah. And I eventually got to the other side, and I got to the other side, and I thought I was going to throw up. I felt like it was popped through the wall. And
so you didn't fancy a pint when you got in there, though?
Well, not immediately. Then. So I got through to the other side, and I'm looking sort of directly up the bar, and in front of me I saw this person with like a blue, I couldn't quite make out, a blue or a green shirt on, and the shirt was untucked. It was like a collared button shirt, but it was untucked and hanging down the back of the bar stool. And the next thing I know, back in the room, and I thought, bloody hell, that was amazing. Yeah, that was quite amazing. Yeah. So I hopped into the car
and off to the pub.
Headed down to the pub
through the door.
Yeah,
through the door. I did try against the granite, but I knackered my nose up. Yeah. So I went in through the door the regular way, and the first thing I actually saw were two friends of mine who were actually sitting at the bar, and then just to the left, where I saw them, was this person. It wasn't. I thought it was a man. I took it to be a man when I was in state, but it was actually a woman, just very short hair, wearing a blue shirt. It was collared. It was untucked, and I walked in, and I'm grinning like a Cheshire cat. And my two friends, Sue, she said, "What are you grinning at?" Yeah, I said, I just can't explain it.
I walked through the wall. There you go.
I mean, I drew a picture. When I was at home, I drew a picture of what I'd seen, and I had a crappy old sort of Starship Enterprise flip phone at the time. So I walked to the position that I'd actually entered the room in the remote viewing session, and surreptitiously took a shot of this person. And when I got it home, interestingly, when I crossed the two images over, they almost lined up perfectly.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
incredible, isn't it?
That was quite but that's one of two times. Normally when doing a remote viewing session, images and the things that come through it's like if you now try and remember a dream, and you've got a soft image, but you're not watching TV. It's not a clear image. It's a bit like a memory, and you describe as best you possibly can and sort of put it down. It was when I first started remote viewing, and I was on the phone consistently to my mum, and she'd mentioned there was a high profile murder case in the UK, and she'd asked me to have a look at that. Now, at that point, it basically stopped being remote viewing, because that's front loading. I know what it is that I'm supposed to be looking at. Right. And this is where remote viewing, as I say, has to be done blind, because otherwise your imagination would just start making things up. So I knew that this was something to do with a high profile murder case. But I'd went in without thinking what it was I could possibly see. And I started getting some very interesting information, pictures, and I'm drawing it as best I could. Some of it was very unpleasant. And I got quite nervous about this. And I thought I'd actually get this information to the Sussex police who are running this particular case. But not wanting to be involved directly, I contacted a policeman that I knew of, a guy called Tony Dodd, who was a UFO investigator. He's passed on now. And Tony Dodd agreed to forward the information onto the police. So I was using fax machines then. So So I draw the pictures.
Yeah.
I give the descriptions, and Tony passed those details on. And that was basically the end of it there. But a few weeks later, I thought I'll go in and have another go. And I got some really graphic, really unpleasant things that made me feel quite uncomfortable. It hit me so hard. I thought I've got to talk to the police now. And as I rang up the Sussex police, and I got put through to the guy in charge, and I said, listen, I don't want to waste your time. I'm a novice at something. This is in 1990, about 1999, I think it was, thereabouts. I said, I'm a novice at something called remote viewing. And the policeman went dead quiet. And then the next thing he said just put chills down my spine. He said, have you ever worked for any government bodies or intelligence agencies before? And I'm thinking, bloody hell, he knows exactly what I'm talking about. So I said, no, I haven't. I'm in Adelaide, in Australia. My mum's asked me to have a look, and this is what I've got. And so I sent them all the information. Didn't hear anything back, and didn't expect to. You wouldn't be involved like that. A few years later, I emigrated back to the UK. The guy that had actually performed the murder of this particular girl had been caught. I'd described his house. I described where he was. The evening that this particular girl had disappeared, he claimed that he was at a fairground. One of the images I had was looking down from his garden and seeing a Ferris wheel, a big wheel spinning in the. So that was the only confirmation I got from that. But you can get yourself into all sorts of trouble. There's a guy who's done wonders for remote viewing in the UK called Daz Smith, and like me, he found remote viewing in the early days. Daz went down a different avenue and got involved with the Stargate remote viewers. He wanted to get involved and help people and find missing children and solve murders and all this sort of thing. And he was working with a group of friends. He taught them remote viewing, and he's put out lots of free books. And they thought, well, there's a local murder that's occurred. Why don't we give this information to the police? Unfortunately, what happened, through the information that Daz had provided, he became at one point a prime suspect in the murder.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were going to say, actually, because it depends who you're dealing with, don't you? Yeah. That could happen. It really could happen.
Absolutely, yeah. So Daz, I think he got. I think they were trying to fingerprint him and take DNA tests and all this sort of stuff, and it really made his life hell. So it's generally suggested to any. What's that?
Has he stopped doing it?
He has stopped doing it now. Yeah. It's basically suggested that if you are remote viewing and you're getting some good results and you want to help, the best thing to do is to contact the police, tell them about it. Quite often, if they're interested at all, they might get you to work a cold case, something that they've given up on as a possibility, and go in that way. Yeah. But to do it the way I did it and the way Daz did it back then is a bit foolhardy and can get you into a bit of grief.
Can you get, if you want to be a remote viewer, is this like a full-time paid job? People can people apply?
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, it is. There's two stories here. Daz that I've just mentioned, like me, he was a graphic artist and photographer and so on there. He now does work for a group called the Future Forecasting Group, and they're predicting Bitcoin, all of these sorts of currency exchanges. This is his full-time job now, basically doing remote viewing. They also do mystery targets, so the interesting things like UFOs and that type of thing.
Do you know, the thing that confuses me with that is, if out in the collective consciousness, out in the harmonic frequency, whatever we want to call it, that everyone's tapping into, if there's infinite possibilities, how do they know their predictions are the right ones? You
don't. All you can actually jot down is what you get. And in any remote viewing situation, it's you have to write down everything, because if you come afterwards and sort of say, oh, I did see that. Well, you didn't write it down. It's after the fact. So jot down everything. You'll get some stuff right. You won't get all of it right. And remote viewing isn't 100% perfect. Even in intelligence circles, it's to be used in addition to other information that you have. It's not to be used as a sole source of information or intelligence.
On a light-hearted note, there's going to be people out here listening, right, well, this remote viewing, can I, check out my missus in the shower or something like that? I mean,
if you want to see, I'd say just open the bathroom door and have a look.
Well,
it's a lot easier.
Yes, that is.
Realised it was the ceiling, and he turned around and looked down and saw there was his bed, and there was his wife in bed, and there was a man in bed with his wife, and it took him a second to realise that it was him. So Bob had these very bizarre experiences. He did some work with binaural beats. He was a recording engineer, I believe, and so he put together the Monroe Institute, which enables or helps enable people to pop out of the body. That's it in very, very brief. I'm probably doing it a great misjustice or injustice. In 2017, there was a Gateway Voyage program, which is the signature Monroe Institute course where you train to go out of body. And funny enough, prior to going to this, I'd never been to Ireland before, and I thought, okay, I'd like to see a bit more of the place. I knew I was going to be in Ireland doing this course, which meant blindfolds, earphones, and I thought I don't want my entire week to be just lying on a bed with blindfolds on. That's no way to see Ireland. And I thought, well, I'll also see if there's anyone there that knows anything about remote viewing. So I sort of typed in the internet, and I came across this guy called Paul O'Connor. I thought, brilliant. I'll tell Paul that I'm going to the Monroe Institute. He'll obviously know about it because it features in remote viewing law. And see if he wants to meet up for a beer and a bit of a chat. And I just started typing in his email address, and this thing in my head said, don't worry, Paul will be on the course with you. I thought, okay, I'm just going to let that slide. So I let it slide. Didn't send the email. Flew across to Ireland, got picked up, got to the place. I got I was the only person there who had a room by myself. And the reason I managed that is because I mentioned the sleep apnea and the various problems.
Yeah.
I snore like a rutting walrus. It's not good. So if I was paying, almost $1,000 on a course, I'm not going to want to be lying next to a guy who snores like that. So I got shown to my room and put my bags down. And I walked down the stairs, and this guy comes up to me and says, "Hello, my name's Paul O'Connor." And the first words I said to him, "I effing knew you'd be here." And that was we became tight friends ever since.
Really?
The next year we were in Vegas at the International Remote Viewing Association conference together. We've been tight friends ever since.
Fab, isn't it? I mean, I just love all of this because I had 2 years ago I had an NDE, but that isn't about this at all. But the reason that I'm saying this is because I came out of my body, and I was up on the ceiling looking down, and so I know without a shadow of a doubt that our body and our consciousness are completely separate. They're two completely separate things. And so since then, I just want to explore the possibility and the potential of that. It's because I know. I know, and Kerry knows, and it's we just keep talking to these people, but it's just proof after proof, potential. It's amazing.
It is. As Dean Radin, who's the chief scientist at the Institute of Noetic Sciences, says, anyone who doesn't believe in sort of psychic functioning, ESP, any of these things, they simply haven't looked at the studies and the evidence. If you look at it, it's in black and white there. It's empirical. They've got the information. It's no longer a case of does this exist? It does. It does. It's just, what can we do with it? How far can we push it?
What I'm finding a common message with all our guests that are coming on, we are incredibly powerful. Our energy and what we can do and achieve is just incredible. And I think a lot of us, we limit ourselves, don't we? We put so many limits, and we're just so powerful.
Yeah. I like everybody there. I have these these moments of sort of self-doubt and sort of thinking, can I do this? Is
Yeah.
it possible? And said, no, we are incredible creators. Yeah.
I think though, if somebody like yourself who's experienced it, to have those moments of doubt shows the absolute programming conditioning we go through since birth.
Absolutely.
And so for people that are not open to this at all, you can't blame them really, because there's so many files and programs running to keep us away from it.
It's interesting. When I mention remote viewing, how often that people say, I've never heard of that, and they draw a blank face, and I think, how can you not have heard about this? And that it's, for some people as well, that there's a level of cognitive dissonance. I had a friend down in Cornwall once who said, Jules, I love you, you're smart, you're funny, you're an intelligent guy, but every time you talk about this stuff, I just want to hit you. He said, I cannot deal with what it is that you're saying. And for him, it was just something else. It just didn't cross his field. No. It happens for some people. It doesn't for some.
Why do you think people react that way? Because people, they get really agitated. They get angry. Oh, no. Yeah. Why, in your opinion, why do you think people...
It's outside. It is this cognitive dissonance there. And a lot of it we saw over the whole sort of COVID sort of episode over the last few years as well. There, people were just sort of are locked in. Fear keeps people locked in as well there. And it is years and years of conditioning, and to be told that something that all of their lives they haven't believed is actually true, that for some people that can be very, very difficult. And with remote viewing, I recommend to anyone to actually give it a try. And there are plenty of courses and books and all sorts of things that people can do. Just
We're
to
on
get
it.
correct, when you get a hit, when you get a really good hit, and you've drawn information from nowhere, you've been given. I mean, the numbers don't even count. Yeah. They're completely irrelevant. It's just a mental anchor for the viewer to use. But from even an odd alphanumeric random target number, and suddenly you start drawing all of this information, and you get shown what the target was, and you're looking at your pages, and you've practically drawn this, and you've named people, and that is amazing, and the excitement level is there. And it doesn't always happen, but it's
well, it's been such a pleasure to have you.
It really has.
It's been lovely speaking with you.
Yes, really brilliant, really insightful. Yeah. And do you think you'll are you looking to do kind of workshops or to help people, guide people to do remote viewing? Or?
That's ultimately a goal, is because if I can do it, anyone can do it there. And that is something I'd like to do. And I don't feel I'm sort of trained enough yet. And I've been doing it since 1997. So I'm still not.
Well, listen, I have the place to run the workshop. So, and me and Kerry would like to be on your workshop. And I'm sure we know lots of people that would. So let's have a chat about it.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm working on a documentary at the moment. I'm hoping to launch a podcast similar to you guys, what you're doing here. Amazing. Because it's important to get this information out.
Definitely.
And when you're passionate about it there, absolutely. It's when you're genuine, people start to see that, and it's this, we are something else, we are something special. Yeah. And we're something to be celebrated, and we all need to realise that.
Absolutely.
Brilliant.
Thank you
so much. Thank you
very much.
Thank you.